All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our 10th session in the Conversations in Transportation series. Again, we're really happy that we're getting such great turnout for this session. We're really excited for this one. As always, a couple of reminders. Again, welcome if you've been to all of these, if this is your first one. A couple of announcements. These are no different than the normal. First off, if you have any questions that you come up with during the entire hour, please enter those using the Q&A function here on Zoom. Don't drop them in the chat. Put them in the Q&A function. That's the best way for us to see them. Second off, if you registered before, and hopefully you registered on the Nixite website and you got the Zoom link via email earlier, this afternoon you're going to receive your PDH and evaluation forms with through the same email. You'll get that in your email inbox hopefully sometime this afternoon. If you don't, for whatever reason, receive your PDH and evaluation forms, email me. My email address will be on the closing slide, so we can get that to you sometime later. Other than that, I want to make sure we have as much time as possible for this conversation. We're really looking forward to it, so I'm going to introduce Joe Hummer.
Thanks, Andy. Good afternoon, everybody. And let me echo what Andy said. We're really excited for this event, for this conversation. Thanks to Andy for putting it together. Many other thanks to the Strategic Initiative Council and the Young Members Council for sponsoring this exciting event. Thanks to our sponsors, the company's logos you saw on the opening screen there that really make all of this possible. We really appreciate your support. Yeah, let's onward into it. Today we're talking about transportation with the top person on that topic in North Carolina, Secretary Eric Boyette, hoping to touch on a fair sample of transportation issues and opportunities that face us in the coming months and years. Secretary he was named secretary by Governor Cooper in February of 2020. As transportation secretary, he oversees one of the largest state-maintained highway systems in the nation, and in fact, all modes of transportation. The secretary brings more than 25 years of state government experience in various roles and responsibilities, ranging from technical to financial practices. He previously served as secretary and state chief information officer for the North Carolina Department of Information Technology, and held several key roles at NCDOT, including chief information officer, inspector general, and Division of Motor Vehicles commissioner. He's been recognized numerous times for serving North Carolina with distinction. He earned a Bachelor's of Science from Barton College. He's a native of Kenley, where he lives with his family, and a more complete bio is posted on our website. Secretary Boyette, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Joe. It's and please call me Eric. It's let's make this formal. So yeah, thank you for having me. And I don't know if there's any more complete bio than that anywhere. So that probably took up too much of our time.
Probably did, but people need to know. Yeah, there's a bit more to it on the website. But before we begin, I want to just say a word about my potential conflict of interest here. That I'm talking to my boss's boss's boss. So I tried to keep my Nixite hat on and not try to plug my unit or division here. But Eric, please call me if you see something like that encroaching here. So with that, let's on to the good stuff. I think this qualifies as good stuff. The general topic of the budget, the North Carolina fiscal year 23 budget passed a month or so ago, signed by the governor in July, and I took it to be mostly good news for transportation in North Carolina. Is that the way you see it too?
It is absolutely correct. It's great news. If you looked at the budget that passed and the governor signed, we've got a great opportunity as a beginning. It's not a total solution, but I think all of our partners and the General Assembly realized that, the revenue needed for North Carolina for our transportation system was not where it should be. This is a good first step. Appropriating 2%, 4%, and 6% over the next few years at 6% gets us up to about $600 million recurring. And it's needed. If you look at our capital program and where we were, inflationary hits, just the cost of living going up, which impacts our industry, as everyone knows. But yeah, you're right. It was a big win for us. We're excited about it, and look forward to expanding upon that in the future.
And everybody that I talk to has big ideas about how to spend that extra 200 million, 400 million, and 600 million eventually. What's realistic though?
Sure. So, it's easy for us because, with the STI law, for us, it already helps us tell the story on what we're doing with that funding. Even with IIJA, if we go back to the bipartisan infrastructure law that was passed, we receive off of that money, we'll receive about $400 million over the next 5 years every year. So that money plus the General Assembly funding that we just received goes into our STIP program. So, as you look at our programming for the next 10 years, we're just, doing our draft right now for 24 through 33. When we first started looking at it, we had about a $13 billion over programming issue, not a cash issue. But if you look at the total revenue that was needed for us to develop the projects that the communities want and need, that was where we were. So we're closing that gap now, with the BIL law, and that dropped us back to about a little over 8. And now with this, it looks like we'll be between 3 to 5 of a program, which is within the ballpark that we can work with.
Good. So we can really look forward to not necessarily new TIP projects, but at least getting the ones that are in there, sort of heading toward LET.
You're correct. That's absolutely. We were pushing it. We look at a $13 billion, over programming issue. The only thing you can do is push those projects out.
Yeah.
So now we're bringing those dates in to where they are back on track, and we can deliver those projects on time and on budget, hopefully, if we can continue with this pattern.
Good. The cash balance, some of us see that weekly, and it's been over 2 billion for the last few months. That looks good and healthy. And again, the talk on the street is, well, let's spend that down too. So what do you say to that scuttlebutt?
I tell them we are spending it, and try to explain to people what a cash balance is. When you look at our cash balance, I try to explain to people that look at that like your checking account. We know that we have that much money in our checking account to pay our bills. What we need to inform people on is what bills we have that are coming to us. Right now, we have about $8 billion worth of commitments that are out there on the street that we have to pay for. So you really have to look at your payout curves and what does that mean for us, and our financial team does a great job. $2 billion is not what it used to be. So, we're very cautious about, our cash balance it's a measurement. It's not, the measurement, but it's one of our tools that we look at. And we want to make sure we have enough cash on hand to pay our bills and prepared for any emergencies that are, as we all know, in Eastern North Carolina, Western North Carolina, everywhere in our state now. We can see a simple rain, storm come through and cost, millions of dollars. So we got to be prepared for that. And this was one way we do that.
Yeah, good. Inflation is probably, in many minds anyway, the big culprit for what's happening to the TIP program, and why that $2 billion doesn't buy us as much as it used to. And if anything, it seems like inflation in transportation projects has been even worse, even higher than general consumer inflation over the last couple of years. So what are you seeing in that realm? Is any signs that inflation has sort of topped out, or even it might be coming down a little bit for transportation?
it's hard, Joe. It's hard to say because with COVID and with the labor shortages, if you put all that in the mix, if you look at it from an economy side, it's hard to really say if it's reached the peak or not. I know our industry partners, we're always in touch with them, talking about what are they seeing, and how is this affecting their their industry, our industry as a whole. But they are starting to see some plateaus from what we those last conversations we've had. But the biggest issue for them is labor shortages. Trying to find help to, once you have that material in, what you're worried about with the inflationary cost is making sure you've got the labor to actually do the work. So yeah, inflationary, those issues are there, but we are seeing, obviously we all noticed our fuel prices are decreasing, which normally is tied directly to some of the inflationary rates we see in our materials and supplies. So it's good news. So hopefully it'll continue that way.
I'm going to jump down a little bit. You mentioned the labor shortage.
Sure.
Is that, as you understand it, is that primarily skilled labor, and technical engineer type people? Is that a rural or an urban? Is there any particular segments there that you can point to?
So that's a great question. I'll tell you, our labor, just within DOT, we're at about a 22. This morning, I think it was 22.33% vacancy rate. That's across the entire agency. And when we look at those, we try to break it down by job market and by job specification. Is everywhere. You got to think, when you think about DOT, a lot of people think we're just engineers, but we have a large group of accountants. We have auditors. We have, you look at the division of motor vehicles. There's a lot of vacancies in every one of our job classifications. So we can't really pinpoint it to just one group. And when you talk about the areas themselves, the demographics, it's really, we see a lot in the East and West, because there's a lack of labor pool there right now, specifically in our DMV and our motor vehicle areas. But because if you look at the types of jobs, there's not a lot of remote work when you're a driver's license examiner. You have to be there every day. So those odds are there where we're having to overcome. But this team, as you well know, we have a great team, and this team really works well to find ways to supplement those vacancies with technology, with anything that we can do. So I'm proud. I'm going to put a plug in for our agency a little bit, but I'm proud of what they do each and every day, and the men and women in this agency that work hard for us and the citizens to make sure that they're provided the services that they need.
I'm going to jump ahead to down the list of questions a little bit since you mentioned it. It seems as though on this being proud of our agency and touting our good work, that well, maybe we need to do more of that, and more aggressively, and be more positive, sort of statewide. It seems like in the popular press anyway, in the websites, if we see the label NCDOT, it's usually bad news. So is it? Do you share that perception? And if so, what can we do about it?
I think when I first walked in the door in 2020, I think you're correct. It was a lot of negative when you saw DOT, but I think honestly we turned the curve. I think one of the things that it's unfortunate, but when we have weather events, people really understand the importance of what DOT provides. And our communications team, I'm gonna brag on them for a minute. During the winter storm we had in February, they really did a great job of, drawing the public in to really get them aware about the roads, the road system, and make sure they were off the roads and let us do our job so they could return back to work and the things that they need to do. But yeah, we're getting a lot of positive press now from communities, from our partners. I think our partnerships is something you'll hear me say over and over again. That's something that we have to have great partners, because as an agency, we can't deliver anything that we're tasked to do without great partnerships. But that comes with trust, transparency, and the partnership. You have to have those three things together to make it work. And, if you'll look, you'll see a lot of good signs. I know we've had, the first one that pops in my memory is the individual who lost his wallet at a rest area. And our employee found a wallet, left everything inside, and made sure that the citizen who was out of state received that wallet. A lot of things like that you'll see. DMV had made some changes. They've made some opportunities for people. When you walk up for services, you can actually scan a QR code now and go sit in your car or walk around. Not stand in line, and it'll text you when your services are due. So that's become a more positive environment. So things like that, I think we're getting, to your point, we're getting beyond where we're being lashed out against for things that at some point maybe we should have been lashed out against. But I think we've turned the curve now, and we're providing the trust and transparency that people expect from state government.
Again, I'm going to jump ahead because you're. I love that. As an instructor, I always love that when you lead me to my next question on the matter of trust. I've been in North Carolina for over 30 years. I've always appreciated from the outside or from the inside of NCDOT that especially our political leadership seems to trust us, the technical staff. Sometimes even when maybe they shouldn't, we're on a bit of a limb, but they seem to give us space to go do things, to go try things that most of the time end up paying off and resulting in good projects and good transportation. But maybe compared to other agencies or other states, that we have somehow developed a level of trust between the stakeholders and DOT. So where's that come from, and how can we even foster that even more?
Sure. So since I walked back in the door, we were having some financial issues, and one of the things that we've done is to be as transparent as possible. Anywhere, if there's an opportunity for me, our chief operating officer, Joey, any of our leadership team to go and speak, we go and speak, but we make sure we tell the truth, and we tell everyone in the room where we are, what's going on. When we were having, programming issues at $13 billion, we didn't hide it. We told everybody. We said, hey, this is an issue. We need to make sure you're aware of it, and here's why. So I think for us, being very transparent, we've pushed out a lot more data. We've just changed a lot of the DMV. If you go to our website and look at the DMV, there's a lot of data out there now that the citizens can look at and actually change the date ranges and look and see what, transaction volumes are and just kind of understand. So the more we actually utilize that transparency modes and the data to expose how we are, we got to be honest. There's no need to try to hide behind anything. And I think our partners at the General Assembly, the governor's office is, obviously pushing us to be as transparent as possible. And, I think they realize that, and our communities see that. And now I'm gonna be honest with you, it's not easy when you walk in a room and tell someone that, their projects, because we are $13 billion over program, are going to be pushed out and not delivered until 2030, 2040. That's not the easy answer, but it's the right thing to do, and it's the transparent thing to do. And I really believe between our whole team, doing that, that's how I honestly believe this is why we are where we are today.
Good. Let me back on circle back to the budget for just one more. The federal infrastructure bill seemed to sort of flip a little bit or put a little bit more emphasis than in previous years on competitive grants.
Yes.
So I was wondering how you think DOT is doing. Are we on track to win our share of those grants? And that doesn't mean I'm wanting to write any proposals, by the way, but as a whole, how are we doing competitively?
Sure. We we won one of the largest discretionary grants for one of the modes. We won about a $50 million grant for the S line previously, and recently we just run. If you look at our state as a whole, we won about $60 million in the raise grants. 3 of those are directly for DOT. One was for our ports for some, work there on, I think it was for some new intermodal facility there and some rail stackers. And that was at the Wilmington port. We also, won about, I think it's about 18 or $20 million for, about 28 bridges that we can replace in the western part of North Carolina. And then additional money for some rail hub planning for S-line. So it continues, our team continues we're going to fight for every dollar in that discretionary fund. And our partners in DC and our local partners here are, all on board with, making sure that we work together as a team to ensure that North Carolina gets every dollar we can to put in infrastructure. So, yeah, I think we're very motivated, and we have the right team that's going after this together. Once again, it's the partnership. We've got our federal delegation that we call and tell them we need their support. They all jump in and support us. Our local delegation here, whether it's municipalities or state leaders, everybody jumps in. We got a few more that we're gunning. There's 2 or 3 of them I really want, just because I know it'll help it helps our economy, and it helps our rural areas and areas that we need to really push for.
In the old days, North Carolina used to be known as a donor state that sent more money to DC than we got back. So maybe this gives us a chance to level that off a little bit.
We hope so. Yeah, and that's still the case on our gas taxes. But yeah, we're continuing to try to find a way to flatten that.
Yeah. Speaking of gas tax, I know you know this, but I'll say it anyway, that any reasonable projection is that the gas tax and diesel tax revenues are likely to dwindle in the next few years with vehicles getting more fuel efficient or going electric. It looks like some kind of a tax per mile is the leader in the clubhouse at this point. Do you see it that way too? Does that look like the way we're going to go eventually?
So I think, it's an option. When you talk about the motor fuels tax decline, the good thing is we're not the only ones that realize that. Our leaders in the General Assembly, both the House and the Senate side, understand that. Senator Sawyer actually made a comment. She's one of our chairs for Transportation Committee. She actually made the comment that I think her words were, "The old gas man is dying, and we've got to find a way to replace him." So, and she has a point. And I think the replacement is where, if you look at, Representative Jones and Senator McInnes both have conversations about, how, and Senator Sawyer, all of them, everyone is working together. But, I don't think there's one answer. So I think, if you look at, the road use charge or RUC is really, it may be a part of that formula, the modernization of funding. I don't think it's the only piece. I think we can't rely on that by itself. And we're doing a pilot right now with the Eastern Transportation Coalition. So, people can, kind of understand what does that look like. You can join and do the pilot. I know I did it last session. I haven't done it this time, but it's interesting to see, how much your usage charge would be versus how much you spend for motor fuels. So, and there's some myths out there about, the rural areas will spend more, and, it's really good to see it firsthand. We can put it in people's hands and let them, try it, and then see what the truths are, and work towards, is it a viable option, as part of a new formula for the reform of, our transportation funding.
On the Nixite side, I think we had an update on their work in the Eastern Coalition maybe a year and a half ago. Maybe it's time we invited them back and heard what's new.
I think Trish would, I sit on that board, so I can tell you Trish would be, anytime she can, kind of like us, anytime you can get out and talk about what we're doing, she'd be glad to do that.
Yeah, Good deal. So you really got a sense of, you see a sense of urgency at the legislature. They know that this thing is changing and that they're going to have to act sooner than later.
Absolutely. I mean, it's obvious if you look at, they just, the moving of, that 2 and 4 and 6% of the general fund over for transportation, to me, that was a signal. That was a signal that they understand that, there is some modernization of revenue that needs to be, that discussion needs to happen. We've kicked this can down the road, long enough. And I really think that they're looking at this, strongly in this session. And I'm excited about how do we help, what kind of data can we provide, and what support do we bring to them. So it's really going to be a good conversation. But our industry partners, the industry partners are so, so important with this. It really helps us tell the message when our partners are saying the same message, that, it's time to really make this change.
The NC First Commission did some really good work on this issue, but wrapped up early in 21. So, sort of on the formal or institutional side, do you see anything kind of reforming and getting in place to sort of carry that momentum?
I think, for us, it was a great opportunity. They delivered a great report, a lot of great data, a lot of great opportunities that we then delivered to the General Assembly. And I think that really is what spurred, that thought process to, I know the Senate created an NC10 committee to kind of take this report and now look at what's next. So it's really been used for that purpose. So I think the NC First Commission did exactly what they needed to do for us. So now it's like we've moved to the next chapter. So for us, I think it's going to be more now on how do we help formalize and come up with those, those needed, modernizations on our revenue. So I think that part is behind us now. So next is, let's look at action. What do we need to do now?
Good. Coming back to workforce briefly here, my observation, just Joe, but in my unit, the pay raise in 2018 made a big difference in retention and hiring, for that matter. Do you see that across the department in the data?
Sure, and I think the only problem, Joe, is we didn't get the entire department.
Yeah.
So that it kind of hurt us a little bit, but we're trying to make up for the areas that we're not, fortunate enough to have that pilot program in their units. But I think for the ones that had that opportunity, it really helped. So now we're trying to make sure we catch the other teams up, and also look at the latest information with a new compensation study that's out, and the new opportunities we have with retention and bonuses. How do we, what does that look like for us in state government in that mix? But anytime that we can offer, competitive pay. I mean, honestly, that's what it is. We got to make sure we're competitive with the market, and find ways to, people talk about public service. A lot of times you got to look at, the type of people that work here. They really want to be a public servant. And that's part of the, the initiative that, when you do the recruitment, you've got to make sure you plug that, because not everybody is built for public service. It's not easy. As you know, I'll call your unit out for a minute because I worked in it. So, traffic, you get a lot of calls about, different things that citizens want that we really, we can't provide. We try to provide alternatives. So, it's a hard job, and it takes a dedicated, employee to do that.
Yeah, but can't catch that dedication at my bank either. So
That's correct.
Got to be both there. I noticed a question came in the Q&A. I was just about to ask it, that NCDOT, especially at the leadership supervisory levels, remains predominantly male.
Mhm.
So what can we do? What are we doing to increase the quote here, the question to increase female leadership in supervisory and executive roles.
That's a great question. We've actually got our first female that is the one of our deputy chief engineers. So it was very good to have Kristen promoted in that role. Also at DMV, we've got 3 out of the 4 deputies are females. So, and 1 chief. So it's really something that we've targeted, not only females, but minorities. It's something that we're looking at. How do we expand our, our applicant pool? So our HBCU program is growing. That's another avenue that we can, bring in extra talent. But we also have, to get to the senior leadership way, we've got to provide more, leadership classes, leadership training. So we're in the middle of revamping some of us that have been around a while. We used to have a leadership training academy, and we're doing that again. So Amanda Olive in the HR department they're working on that now to, we had to go out for an RFP. So, everyone knows it takes a little while to get through that, but that is something we're doing to create, the avenues for people to have that training to help them move into those roles. So yes, we're very, very cognizant of it, and we're working to make sure that, we proceed with, with that in mind.
Good. Yeah, that was, let's say, almost a beloved program at one point. The people who've been through that just spoke so highly of it. So
Absolutely.
good. To the sort of organization of DOT. Some of the old timers walking around the hallways here in some of the DOT buildings in Wake County, especially, muse about the good old days when most of the planning and design was done in-house at central units. But we're not going back to that anytime soon, are we?
No, sir, I don't see that happening. If you look at what we've been directed to do by our General Assembly, that's not the direction we've been, given. And honestly, if you look at the amount of work that we have, it's really good for us to have those good partners. But it's changed. I can tell you I've been here almost 30 years, and it definitely has changed since I walked in the door.
Yeah. I think I was in my 3rd day here when the big decentralization occurred. So, I don't quite remember the old, but so there's still sentiment out there, but I think we understand that. Maybe more timely question is, this is a huge state, big differences between Division 1 and Division 14.
Sure.
And it's sort of your job description to keep everybody on the same page, or you've used the word team multiple times here, on the same team. So, how do you do that? Keep everybody sort of, keep the divisions from sort of flying off and doing their own thing.
So one way we do it is communication. You can't expect Division 1 or Division 14 to understand how they need to operate if we don't communicate with them. So one of the things Joey and Chris Peoples, our chief engineer, they meet with all 14 divisions and all of our units within the chief's office, every month to kind of go through, here's what things we know are coming to you, and now you tell us what things you're experiencing. But Joe, you also have to have a little bit of latitude to allow them to do things a little differently, because things that happen in the mountains are a little different than what happens in the coast. And I'll give you a prime example. And I was guilty of this because when Tropical Storm Fred hit, I was in an Eastern Division for most of my career. So I've been through storms. I understand, what kind of team it takes to pull together and work together. And I noticed our Division 14 team was not reaching out to us, and we kept saying, hey, what do you need? What do you need? We're good. We don't need anything. So I went out there. I said, something doesn't match. Something doesn't make sense to me. And I rode out there with the county engineer, with Jason. And I said, Jason, I don't understand why you don't need any help. Well, Joe, we drove up a secondary road that had just been washed away. Looked like a river, was where the roadbed was. And I said, why do we come here? He said, well, Secretary, this is the only way in and out of this route. And I put my hands up. I said, I'm going to shut up and I'm going to go back to Raleigh and I'll never bother you, because, in Eastern North Carolina, we could attack, an area like that from multiple routes. So, it kind of helped me also, and that's where you have to, when I talk about communication, it's two-way. It's not just leadership telling, everyone what to do. It's us listening. And that's one thing that I pride this team on, is listening. And we really, we learned a lot. And Jason was very, very cordial in the way he told me that we knew what we were doing. But it's something that, we kind of make sure that they have the same goals, but we don't tell them, we don't get into the micromanagement of how they need to do it, because that we know that they've got to be flexible enough to handle things differently on each end of the state and the middle of our state.
And come up with creative solutions. Give people room.
Absolutely. You give them the opportunity and ability to shine, and people are going to shine. Our employees want to do a great job, and we just got to get out of our own way sometimes to allow them to do that. And I've seen that over and over again. They work well with our contractors. They work well with all of our industry partners, and we have to provide that support for them.
Let me move on to a not so happy topic, and that's safety. That's been grim over the last couple of years. Fatalities rose from 19 to 20 by about 10% or so, despite the sizable drop in travel. Rose again from 20 to 21. Looks like they might be leveling off a little bit from 21 to 22, but that's no great prize because they level off at a high number. So have you heard of anybody with a good idea out there about what to do about this, especially the fatalities?
No, and I think everyone knows, we lost our own employee, Anna Bradshaw, of our Wilson maintenance yard out of Division 4, to a tragic incident on the side when she was flagging traffic to, keep our citizens safe with a fallen tree. It's tough. It's something that, it's quick to point the finger at our law enforcement to say, hey, you're not writing enough tickets, but you also got to put ourselves in their shoes. They don't have enough staff to do their job either. I talk to the colonel frequently, and I think they have about 200 vacancies the last time I talked to him. So that's people not patrolling. But that's just one piece of this puzzle. Design work. Are we designing roads, where, we can improve safety? Or things that we can do, you look at speed zones, or, are we actually, what percentile do we really need to use? Is that 85th the right number? So just things like that, I feel like, it's kind of like it goes back to budget, Joe. There's not a silver bullet to solve the dissolve of the gas tax and how it's basically running away from us. So it's the same here with safety. We just we have our messaging, Governor's Highway Safety Program. We've got to continue that messaging when we talk about click it or ticket, booze it, lose it, and our Vision Zero. We have to have more conversations with all of our drivers. We do a great job of focusing on our young drivers, but I think we miss a gap between just above those young drivers, that are on our roads frequently. We have to continue that education and push, and it's a partnership with our law enforcement, with NHTSA, with our safety. All of that has to come together. We just finished our safety conference, and I'm hoping to have hoping that the team come away with some new material that maybe we can, work together to lower those rates. But you're right, that we can see them plateauing, but even at that, it's way too high.
Something I never thought I would see right after this many years. I think you and I have been in this business about the same length of time. Throughout most of our careers, that rate was headed downward, and I guess I assumed it would keep doing that. It's
absolutely. And I think to your point, you had less cars on the road, so we would your brain automatically assumes you got less cars, you just have less.
Right, right.
No, it didn't, that was not the math. The math and the equations and the, the parameters didn't, that's not what we saw.
My predictions are usually wrong, and that one is spectacularly wrong. Yeah. So, uh, North Carolina is a strange state, and the right word, but we're different in a lot of ways. One of the ways is we have, I think, still the largest rural population of any state in the union. And highway fatalities are mostly a rural phenomenon. So those two kind of large facts, or can we somehow put those together to form a good program to go after at least those types of fatalities a little bit more vigorously?
And I think that's something that, when the teams are looking at this data, and number one, you know this as well as I do, we got to have accurate data, and we've got to make sure that the data we're looking at, we understand the data. And I think with that, and pulling in, our experts to talk about, what are we seeing? Is it, left of center? What types of accidents are we seeing? How do we help? Is it design? What can we do to help prevent these? What new products are out there? What do we look at with our partners to help us, with these? So, it's got to be a partnership with, our experts and our team collecting that data to make sure we're working together. But yeah, you're right. There's, we're a very rural state, and there are a lot of accidents in our rural areas. So it is a focus, and we've got to figure out how to get, those numbers down.
Yeah, always seemed to me to be the makings of some kind of a bargain or a partnership with the legislature and with others out there, counties perhaps, but the makings of a deal there, especially for our rural areas. Want to remind everybody at 12:45, if you got a question for the secretary, please put that in the Q&A function. We will have a few minutes coming up shortly here to direct some of those questions to the secretary. So appreciate that from y'all out there. Multimodal aspects. It seems to me, again, within our career spans, the NCDOT has made a really remarkable shift from an agency that never did anything for pedestrian and bicycle, urban and suburban places, to one that really builds quality facilities. Maybe not everywhere, and not everywhere the advocates would like, but a lot of places, some darn good facilities coming up out there. So you share that sense, and how can we sort of build upon that momentum too?
Sure. I think when Julie White and her team looked at, we had the bike and ped unit and public transit, and they formed IMD, the Integrated Mobility Division, and Ryan Brumfield and his team really took that on as a challenge. And they've been so impressed. I was very impressed when I walked in the door at what their goals were, what they were trying to achieve, their partnerships they had worked with the communities on. But you're right, it's something that we didn't really have a focus on. I think we really have a great partnership too. When you mentioned highways, it was always highways and modes, and now with them together and underneath Joey is really they're partnering, and our divisions are really working together with our modal team. But it's just something that, to your point though, advocates, they want more. We've got to figure out, it's a cost, and we've got to figure out how to balance that cost. But what's happened that we've noticed also is the communities, as developers are coming in, our planners are really important on that piece to make sure that they start that process with pedestrian access, with bicycle access, to make sure that that is part of that planning process. And it goes back, when we talk about safe roads and designing, that is a big piece of that. So it's good to see that that progression forward. And we talked about the S line already. That's something that I'm excited about. I just
I can't wait to ride the Richmond and beyond quickly, easily.
absolutely. It's we took a trip to Florida to kind of, I wanted to better understand with our RTA delegation here to look at, you know, South Florida and how it works there with the Brightline. It was very, very impressive. We learned a lot. So we brought back a lot of knowledge too to help us plan for the S line. But yeah, you're right. I'm excited about that day. We still got a few more dollars we got to capture from the feds, but hey, we're working towards that goal.
And that's going to be fun. Let me lob some of these questions from the Q&A here. Ron, one of our stalwarts at Nixite, asking about back to the labor shortages, including the 22% vacancy rate at NCDOT. So what types of quick training are we providing to help fill those vacancies? Anything innovative or non-traditional?
Sure. So one of the things that our Office of Civil Rights has done in teaming with our Division of Highways and our industry partners is we've created like pop-up construction trade academies. We've also worked with our community colleges where we can train skilled labor for, you know, we've got a lot of heavy machinery that's sitting still right now because we don't have that skilled trade. So we've done that. Just recently, I know Nash County completed a course. We hired about 20 people between our agency and our partners, you know, the construction industry. So that's been one thing. We've actually gained a lot of credit. Our FHWA is talking to us now about what was that and how'd you do it? And so really proud of that team and what they've done with the on-the-job training and things like that.
Good. Bill Hunter over from Highway Safety Research Center notes that speeding is a pervasive problem. And whoop, just lost it here. Hang on, there it is. Are speed cameras being considered, say, at construction zones?
I know that, you know, for us legislatively, we can't do that, but it's something that has been talked about. I'm not sure exactly where that sits right now. We brought it up a couple of times, and but yeah, we have mentioned that, especially in our work zones. It would be very helpful for us. But I know the patrol would be, you know, interested in seeing that as well. And our local municipalities, our sheriffs, and you know, they're all supportive. We just got to figure out, you know, is that the right tool? But he's absolutely right. You know, speeding is you know, one of the biggest causes of our incidents and fatalities.
A lot of our Nixite members work at universities or indeed are student members. So I think this question comes out of that vein of how important in your perception has research been in advancing NCDOT's goals and mission?
I think it's, you know, we have great partnerships with, you know, NC State. I visited UNC Charlotte recently to look at, you know, what we do there in their labs and just different opportunities, but absolutely correct. There's actually ways that, you know, we need to partner more. So we were looking at some technologies that UNC Charlotte was, you know, developing that I know will help us in the future. You know, it could be anything from, it's one thing I try to, you know, when we talk to our universities and our MSUs and HBCUs is about, you know, not just engineering. Look at transportation as a whole. Look at everything we touch and help us with that. But yeah, you're absolutely right. We lost a dear friend and Neil Maston over to a private firm, and Neil was really good at bringing, you know, and coordinating that for our agency, and we're continuing to find opportunities. But absolutely, research is important for not only our future, but what we're doing with our products as well.
Yeah, we miss Neil. I love this question. Similar lines. As a younger engineer transitioning from learning into leading, there's been a message from the more senior professionals outside of NCDOT that some within NCDOT have an anti-municipality mentality. So as the younger generation step up, what can they do to help change that mentality and that message?
I think the first is to ensure that everyone knows that's not true. And second is, you know, to communicate. Like I said in the beginning, we've got to talk And if there's an issue with the municipality, instead of dodging it, talk about it. Be honest and have those honest conversations. And then at the end of the day, make sure everyone understands we're all pointing towards the same goal. We want what's best for our citizens and our residents in North Carolina for all of their transportation needs.
Yeah, good. Next question here, it ties in with one that I had written out for you. My phrasing was, how can we keep Charlotte from becoming the next Atlanta or Houston or LA, right? So this question was a little bit more polite than mine, is what is NCDOT doing to maintain its infrastructure at a level that meets the rapid population growth in the state, and should towns and cities be held more accountable in this regard? So, yeah.
That's a great question, and it's something that when we look at our MPOs and RPOs, that area would be C2PO. So how can they help us? Because our job is not to decide what areas receive what types of transportation. It's that local input. It's really on those locals to understand, are they growing too fast, and how to restrict that. But it's our job to execute on what they desire in their area. So, but it's also our job to kind of help and guide, if they have questions. So communication and partnership. I don't know how many times I've said it, Joe, but it's the biggest.
12.
So I said at least 8, so everybody got it. So it's the biggest thing that you can do to support that community. And we've got the same issue in Wilmington. Wilmington's having an explosion as well. So we're trying to help people understand that it's okay, and you're not going to lose.
I had a question on this in my list too, along the lines of that my perception, again, just Joe, is that sometimes NCDOT is really scared of its own shadow, that if somebody makes a comment somewhere, that we jump all around, and that at times it seems like we need to sort of grow a little bit more of a backbone, and have a little bit more, I don't know, self-confidence, if that's the right phrase there. But it's clearly a balance, right, between those instincts.
Well, and the thing is, Joe, you got to think it's not our decision. Yeah. So we shouldn't be telling anyone what they should do in their community. It's the community's decision on what they want. That's what we used to do, and it got us in trouble. So that's why the STI law was written, and why we have MPOs and RPOs for them. But they also have to do their job. Yeah. So but you're right, it's a delicate way, but we've got to provide enough knowledge and information for them to do that. So that's the part that, we've got to make sure we're doing our part.
Good. Time for a couple more before our 1 o'clock inning time. Again, from Ron, and I'm kind of embarrassed I hadn't asked this already, but electric vehicles. So yeah. Is that a particular focus for NCDOT, or do we sort of need to do more research and see which way the market goes?
Well, I think we've seen where the market's going. We've turned in our federal plan, our National Electric Vehicle Inventory Plan, and we're looking at charging stations. What do we do? Obviously, we don't want to give away anything. We want to make sure that we're receiving funding back for what we're installing, or anything that as far as electrical charges. But there's things like that we're looking at. We're talking to industry leaders. Jen Weiss is our policy director for our environmental side, and she's really doing a great job. Heather Hildebrandt on our team is also, they're always talking and looking at these opportunities. So it's something that we're paying attention to. We're part of not only here at NCDOT, but our southern region, our Sashto region. We talk about it when we meet about, all right, what are you seeing? And I stay in touch with the Dealers Association. I talk with them frequently about, all right, what trends are you seeing? So it's something that, once again, it goes back to the gas tax. It's another something else that's just chopping away at our gas tax. So we definitely have to pay attention and plan for it.
Yeah, maybe other than that, it's not a bad thing. It's just, yeah, we've got to stay with it.
That's right.
It sort of saved this one for last because it give you a chance to maybe fold in anything we haven't talked about here, a message you'd like to get out there. But the question from the audience, really good one here. So excluding more transportation funding, what is the one thing you would change at NCDOT if you could snap your fingers and get it done immediately?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a great question. Trying to think what keeps me up at night. Honestly, it's, you had this question earlier. I think, it's our labor and our staff. How do we prepare the future leaders? We have a lot of great people today, but when you look at that succession planning, that knowledge that's going to go out the door, are we preparing our next group of leaders? And it's something that I feel like, I don't know, I can snap my fingers and solve it, but I think it's something that, we got to get ahead of, and we're working towards. But, that's, that part is something that, we got a lot of dedicated people, and being able to, ensure that they're paid properly and that, they're respected, which is one of the biggest things. And it's something that we've got to, to me, I think that's something we're working on, but we're not there yet.
Good. That I think gets us to a good wrapping up point here. Eric, thank you so much. That was great. Got lots of other questions. Maybe we'll schedule again if we get to season 3 next year. If you come back, we'd love to have you. But really appreciate your time here today.
All right. Thank you. Good conversation.
Very good. Andy, with that, going to turn it back to you to wrap us up.
All righty. Thanks, Joe. Again, as a reminder to everybody, thank you for attending, and you'll receive your PDH and evaluation forms in your email inbox this afternoon. We look forward to our next session, which will be coming up in October. Joe, is that correct? That's the plan?
Yep.
All righty. On behalf of both of us and everybody else who helps out with all of our next site events and all of our sponsors, thank you for attending. We hope to see you again in October.
Take care, everybody.